Hello everyone and welcome to a new series in which I'll be sharing my thoughts on every season so far of Game of Thrones. Obviously I won't be holding back on any spoilers, so please keep that in mind when watching these reviews. First off, you're all probably wondering why it's taken me so long to get on board with the phenomenon that is Game of Thrones. Well, the reason being is that I've never really been keen on stories based in a medieval fantasy setting. Normally I just can't get into programs or video games based in that era. For example, I know that Lord of the Rings is universally critically acclaimed, but it's just not for me. The same goes for the Elder Scrolls series of video games. The truth is, when I see something that has dragons, elves and trolls in it with characters who speak in ye olde English, I just completely switch off. I'm a sci-fi guy. I like robots, spaceships and lasers, not metal swords, shields and magic. Obviously, I've been aware of the Game of Thrones TV show since it initially aired. It's kind of impossible not to be, but I've always just thought that it wasn't going to be for me, which is why I didn't bother watching it. Recently though, I've come to realise two things. One, that I don't watch enough different types of TV shows, and two, that it's a bit dumb to write something off without even giving it the chance. What this all means is that after 7 seasons of Game of Thrones, I've decided to finally see what all the fuss is about, and I'll be doing the same with other shows on my channel in the future. Back to the subject at hand for now though, and I guess you all want to know exactly what I thought about the show. Well, whilst I enjoyed ending the first season on the whole by the end of it, my first impressions were a bit muddled. I mean, I was kind of surprised by the manner in which Game of Thrones introduces its universe to its viewers. In my experience, most shows start things off slowly by focusing on a couple of characters in a select few locations, before then expanding the size of the cast and locations as the show progresses. In a sense, I guess that Game of Thrones does do this, as I'm sure more complex storylines are introduced in later seasons. However, the opening episode just kind of plops you in this already established universe and expects you to figure out what the hell is going on. The pilot episode features the Night's Watch, the Stark family, the Lannisters, the Targaryens and the Dothraki. That's 5 different groups. I think it's fair to say that there's a hell of a lot going on here at one time, and the same goes for the entirety of the season. This really isn't a show you can watch if you're half asleep. You really need to be paying attention to what's going on. I feel that I watched the show quite intently, yet by the finale there were still people whose names that I didn't know. I don't know who this guy is, I can't remember the eunuch's name, the guy who's riding with Daenerys, I haven't got a clue what he's called. This shouldn't necessarily be taken as a criticism though. In fact, I like that there was so much going on over the 10 installments. It was just that the first episode had a lot more than what I expected. I thought things would start out a bit slower, but the programme begins at a quick pace and manages to maintain this speed, with Game of Thrones getting through a fair amount of story during its initial 10 episodes. Admittedly, this is kind of nice after watching a certain zombie show which has 6 more episodes than Game of Thrones each season, but still manages to cover less ground. No prizes for guessing what show I'm talking about. Speaking of story, I really like the narrative behind Game of Thrones' debut season. It's a bit complicated to summarise, but it basically comes down to a war between the Starks and the Lannisters, with the reasons behind this developing over the course of each episode. In addition, we've got Jon Snow positioned at the wall with the Night's Watch, protecting the realm from what dangers lurk behind it. And finally, Daenerys is also off on her own little adventure with the Dothraki. Whilst not every group on screen is seen directly interacting with one another, they do all have connections to each other, and the individual actions of each character affect the rest of the world, which is something that I really liked. For instance, although I found a Daenerys storyline to be the weakest, which I'll get to a bit later, I thought it was clever that even though she was hundreds of miles away from the Fat King Robb, he was aware what was happening where she was. When Daenerys got pregnant with Drogo's baby, it caused Robb to piss his pants, and Robb's reaction made me feel like every scene I was watching was important due to how it could have a knock-on effect on the rest of the characters. I know I haven't done the best job of explaining it, but the point I want to make is that Game of Thrones does a wonderful job of making everything matter. Every action has a reaction and a consequence. Of course, this does require some suspension of disbelief from the viewer, with it seeming to me like characters set in a programme in a medieval era can somehow spread news quicker than people can spread gossip on Twitter. But I'm okay with that because it makes the show more interesting. I mean, it wouldn't be much fun if when Catelyn kidnapped Tyrion, Tyrion's brother Jaime didn't find out about this until 6 episodes later because he had to wait on a handwritten letter. This kind of storytelling means the stakes are always high, and I applaud the way the season builds up the stakes throughout every instalment. What starts out as a kind of a murder mystery with Ned trying to discover why Robert's last hand, Jon Arryn, was murdered, turns into a full-blown war after Ned arguably goes too far down the rabbit hole. The Starks and the Lannisters were supposed to marry into one another at the start of the season, yet by the end of it, they're killing each other. At the start of this video, I mentioned Lord of the Rings, and like Lord of the Rings, I was kind of expecting lots of massive grand-scale battles to take place, but to be honest, that didn't really happen. I know that I just said that by the end of the season, war breaks out, but just as things kick off, Tyrion, who the show is following at that point, is knocked out and wakes up to find the war is over. Then the show skips ahead to Robb Stark, who I assume has just fought in another battle, with him and his men managing to take a certain Jaime Lannister hostage. To me it felt kind of weird that these battles weren't shown on screen. I don't know if this was a budgeting issue, I don't know if this is what happens in the books as I haven't read them, or I don't know if it was instead a conscious creative choice. Personally though, it didn't affect my enjoyment of the show because it's clear that this is a very character focused season, which makes sense when you've got so many players to introduce. Many members of the ensemble cast have a chance to shine, but I would say that much of the season arguably belongs to Ned. He's the one who finds out that Joffrey isn't the true king, and he's the one who pays with his life. Ned was an honourable man, but perhaps he was too honourable. In this respect, he was a bit like Rick Grimes back in season 1 and 2 of The Walking Dead. Okay, I don't remember Rick chopping anyone's head off, but for me both of these characters were too nice and naive when the world around them wasn't. And whilst Rick was afforded the chance to change and adapt, Ned wasn't, as he was beheaded by the brat Joffrey. Sadly, because Game of Thrones has been out for so long now, and because so many of my friends also watched the show, it's kind of impossible to avoid spoilers, meaning I already knew coming into this season that Ned would die because I've overheard a couple of my friends talking about it a while back. But even though I knew he was going to die, I was still shocked when it happened. I appreciated the fact that his death was so swift. There was no drawn out sequences or flashbacks just before he died. Joffrey gave the order and that was that. Ned, arguably the main character of the show, was killed in an instant, and the fact that he was killed without little to no fanfare for me made it all the more impactful. I also couldn't believe that Joffrey sentenced Ned to death, especially after Ned had done everything that was asked of him. Joffrey's speech before Ned's beheading is a fantastic example of how to misdirect the audience. The Boy King addresses the crowd by saying that Sansa had asked for mercy for his father, and at this point I was thinking to myself, yes, Ned's going to get out of this. A couple of seconds later though, Joffrey says words to the effect of, "You know what, I'm not going to show him mercy because I don't accept treason, kill him." Like I said, I knew Ned was going to die, but I genuinely did not expect it to happen like it did. Joffrey truly is an evil bastard. Imagine sentencing your girlfriend's dad to death in front of her. What kind of sick person does that? I knew he was a bit unhinged when I first saw him being a dick to Arya's friend early on, but I didn't think he would turn out to be this evil. What's scary is that he only seems to get worse from this point on, as he is seen treating Sansa like absolute shit, and also has a man's tongue chopped off. He's a repulsive, slimy antagonist, but strangely I'm looking forward to seeing what he does next, and how far the show pushes the limits with his character. As a person, I can't stand him. As a villain, I think he's a damn good one, and I hope he has more screen time in the upcoming seasons. Aside from Ned and Joffrey, I also want to mention some of the other characters who I enjoyed the most. Now of course I can't go this entire video without talking about Tyrion, who I would describe as the nice Lannister. I kind of feel sorry for him for having to be part of such a shitty family, because he seems like a decent guy. Yeah, he's a troublemaker, but he's not from the same cloth as Joffrey and Cersei. Maybe he turns out to be an arsehole in the later seasons, I don't know, but for now I see him as one of the good guys. When he opened up and spoke about the girl he loved and lost who actually turned out to be a hooker, with the whole thing being set up by his brother Jaime without his knowledge, I felt really bad for him. It was endearing hearing this sad tale being told. It's not all doom and gloom though, as he made me laugh out loud on numerous occasions. Due to his size, he has to come to rely on his wits and intelligence to get him by, which results in quite a lot of scenes of him winding up other people and just taking the piss out of them. When he took to the floor to confess his crimes in front of Catelyn's weird sister, whose big kid is always sucking on her tits, I found his speech hilarious. It probably wasn't to everyone's taste, but him confessing about wanking into his sister's soup at what was supposed to be a trial for attempted murder had me in bellies of laughter. Simply put, he's great, and I look forward to every time he's on screen. Jon Snow is another character who I couldn't help but like. It's kind of a weird comparison, but for me he is Game of Thrones Captain America, and what I mean by that is he's the show's moral compass. In a show which has nearly every single character trying to backstab one another for their own personal gain, you need someone like Jon who is going to fight for what is right and stand up for the little guy. Well, in this case, the fat guy. Jon is the outcast of his family, he's the underdog, and he's someone you can get behind. Whereas most of the people at the wall are rapists, murderers and thieves, Jon is there just because he wanted to do his bit to protect the realm. I understand why he tried to run away after his father was killed, but I appreciate the level of maturity it took for him to come back. I completely agree with Jon's commander when he said that the war being fought between the Lannisters and the Starks is pointless compared to the war the Night's Watch may have to fight. The Starks find themselves going to war with House Lannister due to the attempt on Bran's life as well as Ned's murder. These may seem like valid reasons for war to the Starks, however the Night's Watch are fighting to protect the entire realm. They aren't fighting for revenge or power, they are fighting to ensure the survival of the entire human race. Even though Jon was stopped by his friends when trying to leave, he could have still just told them to piss off and left anyway. But he realised that what he's doing at the wall is more important than the battles between the two families, and I respect him a lot for that, and I can't wait to see exactly what does lie behind the wall. The last character who I want to talk about in any real detail before I move on to discussing something that I didn't like is Arya Stark. Now, anyone who regularly watches my channel knows that one thing that really gets on my nerve in TV shows is annoying kids. It's something I complain about a lot when talking about The Walking Dead and Fear the Walking Dead, however I can't say the same for Arya. In fact, I would say that at this moment in time she's actually one of my favourite characters on the show. From what I've seen of Game of Thrones, most of the female characters are either destined to be married off to some waste of space and spend the rest of their lives miserable producing babies like a factory production line, or they go to work in a whorehouse. That's about it. Sucks to be a girl. Arya, however, openly challenges all these conceptions. When her dad tells her that one day she's going to be a princess and will find a prince to marry, she says that's not her. She wants to fight like her brothers, and I'm glad that Ned found her a teacher to show her how to use a sword, rather than just saying to her, no Arya, you can't do that because you're a girl. I loved the fact that she put Joffrey on his arse during a second episode after he attacked her friend. I also like that during the next episode when Ned told her Sansa was going to marry Joffrey, she asked her father how he could let someone like that marry her sister. She's an incredibly switched on girl for her age who at times seems to know what's going on better than the adults in the programme. She can also be bloody scary when she wants to be. Her threatening the fat boy during the last episode was absolutely brilliant, and I'm glad that despite her age and her size she doesn't take any shit from anyone and won't be pushed around. She's the character who surprised me the most this season because I really wasn't expecting to like her as much as I do. Truth be told, there's not really a lot that I didn't like about this season. However, I didn't care for Daenerys' storyline at all. In fact, every time the focus switched to her and the Dothraki, I just wanted to jump back to another location. Thankfully, there aren't any episodes this season which solely focused on one group, so I was never stuck with her or Drogo for too long. I have a couple of issues with her storyline. The first is that I can't understand how Daenerys can seemingly fall in love with someone who rapes her. When we are first introduced to Daenerys, she is adamant she does not want to marry Drogo. However, she is forced to marry him by her brother. Drogo then rapes her a few times, and in my mind it is unequivocally rape because she repeatedly says no and tries to cover up her naked body when he's forcing himself on her. Fast forward a couple of episodes and she is seen laying all loved up with him. What? At first I thought this was an act, but come the end of the season she's willing to use witchcraft to bring back a man from the dead who sexually abused her. Oh, and let's not forget he also made her eat a horse heart, because that's really romantic. I just can't get my head around why she would end up in love with someone like Drogo. The whole thing just doesn't feel right to me. In addition, if I'm honest, I also found Daenerys to be a bit dull. Sure, I can empathise with her because of the shitty messed up situation that she found herself in, but there's just not a lot to her character. I mean, sure, it's cool that she's invulnerable to fire and it's eventually revealed that she can tame dragons, but as a person she's incredibly bland compared to someone like Tyrion or Ned. Another problem that I encountered with the Dothraki sequences was that for me there weren't any subtitles when they were talking to one another. I've read somewhere that HBO did have subtitles on the episode when they aired in America, but I didn't have any. This wasn't really an issue early on when Daenerys didn't understand the language because her advisor was translating the conversations for both her benefit as well as the audience's. However, as the season progressed and as Daenerys became more fluent in the tongue, the scenes spoken in only the native Dothraki language became more frequent, leading me to wonder what the hell was going on. In the end, I had to Google the content of the conversations because I felt I was missing out on what was happening. As much as I was indifferent to this side plot, I have to say I did like the fact that the witch completely screwed Daenerys over by turning Drogo into a vegetable. I sided with Daenerys when she decided to tell the Dothraki to leave the women of the village that they were pillaging alone, and I naively believed that this witch was going to help her. So when it turned out that she was evil all along, just as the soldiers who tried to warn Daenerys said, it was another good twist in a season that was full of them. Speaking of twists, almost every single installment ended on some kind of tantalising cliffhanger. Whether it was Bran being pushed from atop a castle, Tyrion being arrested by Caitlyn or Catelyn, however you pronounce it, Ned being taken hostage and betrayed by Littlefinger, and of course Ned's beheading. On one hand, I was glad that I could binge through the entire season because I didn't have to wait to see what happened next. However, on the other, I could see that there would be a lot of room for discussion and speculation when waiting for the next episode to air, which is personally something that I like engaging in. So in a sense, I'm kind of annoyed that I didn't experience the show firsthand alongside everyone else, as I feel I missed out on all the debate and talk surrounding it. In conclusion, as you can guess, I really enjoyed Game of Thrones opening season. It's filled with interesting and funny characters, supported by a stellar storyline which progresses at a brisk pace. After a couple of episodes I was hooked and I had to hold myself back from watching the next season so I could make this video. Being the naturally critical guy that I am, I'm always doubtful when programs or films receive a lot of hype. Game of Thrones has been praised to the moon and back, and the cynical part of me always questioned whether it really was as good as everyone says it is. Well, I have to say for the most part I agree with all the plaudits that the show has received. Apart from the subpar Dothraki storyline, there really wasn't a lot for me to complain about. So Game of Thrones Season 1 gets my approval, and now I can't wait to watch its second season. So that's the end of the video. Please let me know your thoughts below. Let me know if you enjoyed this video. Let me know if there's any other programs you want me to cover or any other videos that you want me to do. And until next time, thank you very much for watching, and goodbye. Hello again. I hope you all enjoyed the video. I just want to quickly talk about some of my thought processes regarding the method in which I reviewed this season and what I'll be doing going forward. And I'm reading it off a piece of paper because you can see that now, because I've just put it on the screen by accident because I have to stick the script to the front of my camera next to it, and I've run out of sellotape, so I've got to pick it up now. I really need another way of doing this, because I got a comment the other day saying you should do your reviews in bullet points, which I think could work. Maybe, I don't know. I have to think about it, because I like being more natural, like I am now. But then I also like my reviews being proper. I don't want to make a review where I'm just going, oh well, I think it's good because it looks nice, and you know, I don't want to be shit. I like watching stuff, maybe because I'm a boring bastard, but I like watching stuff where people put a lot of effort and time into it. Like my favourite YouTuber's Matthew Matosis, genius. He talks about games. He does it in such, you know, the amount of in depth that he goes is incredible, and yeah, he's really good, and that's the kind of thing that I guess maybe I'll try and emulate with shows, because that's what I like watching. And I don't know if I should talk about this now, because I'm just going on a little ramble about YouTube. It's going to be a bit weird going back to reading this off a piece of paper, but I think the gist of it was I just wanted to say that... What did I want to say? Oh yeah, I just wanted to say basically that I didn't want to overanalyze and talk about the story in case there's... Because I know people are going to say, why didn't you mention this? Why didn't you mention about this point, blah, blah, blah. But it's been out for, what, 7, 8 years now? What's the point? There's no point in me talking about every single episode and what happens in every single episode and every point, because you've all seen it. You've all seen it, otherwise you won't be watching this video. Or if you haven't, you probably know what happens, or you can Google it and look yourself. Because I know when I did the Fear the Walking Dead reviews, the reviews of the season, sorry, of 1 to 3, I think I sort of basically covered what happened in each story arc in order. Maybe, that's what I think. I don't know, I did it a while ago. But I didn't want to do that in this. I didn't want to sort of go, I like episode 1 because this happened, and then I like episode 2, and then this happens, and then this happens, and stuff. Because what's the point? It's boring. You know it. You know what happens. I don't want to do that. So that's why I just thought I'll talk about the characters I like. I'll talk about things in particular I like, and that's what I think I'll do for the rest of these reviews, because there's no point of me spending 2 hours talking about every single story point, because I'm not going to enjoy it. You're not going to enjoy it. So that's that. I don't know if there's anything else that I want to talk about. Other shows that I'm going to look at. Basically, I've got 6 more seasons of Game of Thrones to go through, and I don't particularly want to start anything else before that's finished, because then I'll get distracted. People know what I'm like. You'll see on my YouTube page, I'll say, oh, this week I'll do this video, and then something else pops into my head, and it gets done about 3 months later. So I want to get Game of Thrones out of the way. I don't want to watch anything else yet, obviously apart from Walking Dead that comes back next week. But for this sort of review of a series that's already been done, I'm not going to have to watch one season of this, one season of something else, because I'll get lost. So other shows I've got on the list at the moment are Breaking Bad, The 100, Peaky Blinders, Altered Carbon, Black Sails, I'm sure someone suggested that, and Better Call Saul, but that's all I've got off the top of my head. It's not off the top of my head, but it says it on a piece of paper, but I wrote off the top of my head on a piece of paper, and it's not on the top of my head, so I'm lying there. I'm sorry about that. All those shows, I think they were suggested by you. They're basically what I've picked up in your comments, and the reason being is that there's what the next paragraph says, is that you might remember I made a video a couple of months ago, I think, called Should You Watch the Rain? And the idea of it was for me to make a series where I was looking at shows, and I was going to say, you know, I was going to review it, and at the end I say, should you watch this? And I'd make a conclusion. I go, yes, you should. No, you shouldn't. That's it. But then I realised that it's kind of pointless making a show called Should You Watch when I'm picking the shows, because the thing about The Rain is I always wanted to watch The Rain. So, you know, you do a review, you do a program called Should You Watch The Rain, and because they're shows that I'm picking, 99% of the time I'm going to go, yeah, you should watch it, which kind of defeats the entire point of the show. So, because I'm not going to actively seek out and watch crap. I don't want to watch shit, you know. It annoys me. It was hard, you know, you saw that I gave up on Fear the Walking Dead because I didn't like it, and I tried my best to stick with it. Anyway, I don't want to slate Fear too much, because I know there's people who still like it, which is fair enough, and I don't really particularly want to moan about it. I have got another video coming up about that soon, so shush, be quiet, Josh. It's a joke video, by the way, so don't take it too seriously, but it'll come out soon. What was I saying? I've completely forgotten what I was saying now. This is why I script my videos, because I don't know what I'm talking about. Fear the Walking Dead. What was I talking about? Oh, no, I don't remember. Yeah, that's it. Basically saying that I'm going to shelf that show, shelf that program. I only did one episode anyway, but I'm going to shelf it just because there's no point of doing Should You Watch This, because I'm not going to spend my time watching crap. If you suggest me stuff to watch that I don't like, that, you know, I mean, you suggest me stuff. I mean, if you suggest me programs, then I'm not going to know, you know, if I like it or not. I didn't know that I'd like Game of Thrones before doing this review. In fact, I actually thought that I would hate it. And then everyone would say, how can you hate Game of Thrones? What's wrong with you? You know. So yeah, that's probably the best idea. I think the best thing going forward is just tell me what you want me to do. Tell me what shows you want me to review, and I'll review it. I'm quite up for watching anything. You know, I'm sort of open to anything. I don't, especially like with Game of Thrones, like I said, I don't see the point now of sort of saying, no, I don't like this genre, because you might be surprised. And also I think it makes you a better reviewer, better YouTuber, you know, better critique. I hate that word. But yeah, it makes you sort of better at writing, and, you know, and getting reviews done in general, because you know more about telly and more about different shows now they're all made, and I'm just talking rubbish now. But yeah, so just let me know your shows below. It might take years for me to get done because I'm quite slow at making videos, but just let me know anyway. In terms of what is coming this week, like in terms of what's coming this week, I want to do some kind of silly videos, because I try and put as much jokes as I can into my videos, but I've noticed, especially this one and the one about Fear, they're quite dry. It's just, I've got to chuck a few jokes in there and the Telltale one. But I want to do more, this week. I just want to, like, until I do the Walking Dead review, I've just got two stupid ideas for videos. I mean, one is, you've seen it before, it's my cooking. I want to do another video because they're funny. I think they're funny. People think they're funny, seem to like them. They don't get the most views, but I think they're funny. So I want to put another video up this week, and I haven't, because I haven't done one for about 2-3 months. So I'll do that. And I've also got a weird parody of Fear the Walking Dead, with me doing a really bad impression of Scott Gimple, which is based on absolutely nothing and sounds nothing like him. But I just thought it's funny. If people don't like it, they don't like it. But I don't. Yeah, I just want to break from sort of serious stuff this week. So. And they shouldn't take me too long, because they're just dumb videos. They're just not going to take me hours to write down scripts and stuff. So the plan, yeah, for this week, get them out, and then obviously watch Game of Thrones around that. Hopefully that doesn't take too long to get done. The second one, when I wrote the script, I'd only just finished the first season, but I've now watched 4 episodes in season 2. It ended on this woman giving birth to a demon from her vagina, which was very weird, but no, it's good. I'm liking it again. It's a good season so far. So yeah, hopefully I should get that done in a couple of days, hopefully, and then I'll start on that. And obviously next Monday for me, Walking Dead is back. Yeah, and I like to get the reviews that same day, so we'll do that. You look forward to sort of Walking Dead reviews every week, and then hopefully every week or two there'll be Game of Thrones video, and then when that's done I'm moving to another show, and then blah blah. So that's it. But I never like to fully commit and say this is going to be on this date, because I'm terrible for timekeeping. So just keep that in mind. That's what I've got planned for. It might not happen, because
I'm a bit shit with keeping plans. I get distracted too much. But anyway, I'm waffling on now. Thank you very much for watching. I'm very tired. I've got to go to work tomorrow. I'm going to go to bed. Goodbye.